Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Katie, and this is The Housewife Did It.
True Crime Edition. On a
Heck yeah.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday!
True Crime Tuesday.
If you only listen to our true crime, you're probably confused. Unless you also follow us on Instagram. But this came out on Tuesday. You may have noticed it didn't come out on Friday. That's the new schedule. We're only doing one episode a week now, and it will alternate between pop culture and true crime. So if you're hearing this on Tuesday, next Tuesday, you'll have a pop culture episode. And if you don't listen to that, then you'll have to wait.
Yeah. If it's Tuesday in it, you have to send this to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening on a different day, you could still send it, but you don't have to. You're not obligated. Only if it's Tuesday. All right, you ready?
Yep.
I have 2 real-time true crimes.
Okay.
Number one, is that former President Donald Trump is officially a 34-time felon.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations
Yep.
to him. Moving on. The other one,
Is this other good news for Billy?
the second one.
Uh-huh. Or will I have a real-time true crime? Give it to me.
I think he'd find it interesting.
Okay, probably not.
I put this in here because my vice principal has been talking about it all week long, so it must be important. A 30-year-old Las Vegas woman named Julie Bush is officially on trial for the murder of her boyfriend, 51-year-old Richard Pinardo, after she claims she found a box of tampons in his car that he tried to convince her she had purchased, but she knew that they belonged to another woman. The story of what happened to Richard has changed several times. At one point, it was that she accidentally ran him over.
Ah.
At another point, she intentionally rammed him with her car.
That sounds similar. Well, from the accident part.
At this point, though, she is claiming she had no part in his death, and she is being framed by the police.
Okay.
Set up, she says. Was that good news for Billy?
No. I mean, it's fine, I guess. But Chad Daybell has been found guilty of the first-degree murder of his first wife and Lori Daybell's 2 children.
Good. What about
Snaps
her, though?
all around.
What about her?
Oh, she been gotted.
Okay.
I think, right? Like, hold on.
I don't know. That's why I asked.
Well, I mean, she may not be, like, done. Let's see. Lori Daybell now. Yeah, I mean, she, like, is in custody and, like, did her trials. I don't really know. But he was, like, the second part. Also, an update from a previous case. Corey Richens is in court now, and she has made her first comments since being arrested for allegedly poisoning her husband. And she said, "This means war."
Now, I can tell you that her name is not spelled correctly. It should be pronounced Cowrie, but
whatever.
Beside the point. This is what I'm learning in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you ready for the real stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Please. Okay. Let me preface. Content warning, harm to children. You know the deal. Also, this case is from Japan, so I had to translate a lot of this on my own. So I may be wrong on some things. depending on how it translated. Also, I've been practicing these names, so I hope I say them all correctly.
Did you confirm their pronunciations?
I did listen to some episodes
Okay.
that confirmed it for me.
Nice.
But I've been practicing.
Nice.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
All right. At 10:40 a.m. on December 31st, 2000, a woman named Haruko walked into her daughter's family home in Kamisoshigaya neighborhood of Setagaya in the suburbs of Tokyo. She had become worried about her family when she attempted to call her daughter, and the call had not gone through. While it wasn't necessarily alarming that the family may have missed one call, Haruko became more worried when they continued not to answer, especially since it was a holiday, and she assumed that the children would have woken their parents up by now. They would have been excited.
Yeah.
When she got to the home, there was no answer from the doorbell, so she used her spare key to make her way inside. When she entered the home, she found the bodies of her daughter, 41-year-old Yasuko Miyazawa, her son-in-law, 44-year-old Mikio Miyazawa, and her two grandchildren, 8-year-old Nina and 6-year-old Rei. Mikio, Yasuko, and Nina had all been stabbed, while Rei had been strangled. Mikio was found first on the ground floor of the home at the foot of the stairs, covered in blood and stab wounds. Despite her fear, Haruko made her way up the stairs, hoping to find and save the rest of her family. She thought that the guy could still be there. She thought they could still be alive. She didn't know. Yasuko and Nina were found in the second floor hallway between the bathroom and the toilet room, holding on to one another. They were like hugging. Haruko attempted to revive them, but was unsuccessful as they were cold and had been dead for several hours. Haruko found Rei still in his bed with no blood around, but quickly saw marks around his neck and knew he had been manually strangled. Police quickly made their way to the home to begin their investigation, where they were able to determine that the family had been murdered late in the evening of November 30th, somewhere between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, and they believed the killer had remained in the home for several hours.
Like it just kind of looked like someone had done some things after that.
It was very obvious that
Like
someone
lived in. Oh, okay.
I'll tell you why, because it's crazy. The timeline of the murders matched up with neighbors' accounts of the day and night of the murders. The family had gone shopping at a local mall on the 30th and then had come home and eaten dinner, just had a normal evening together at the house. Neighbors then reported hearing a loud noise from the home at around 11 p.m. Police originally found no sign of forced entry, but after moving farther through the home, they could see that the killer had likely entered the home through an open window in the home's second floor bathroom at the back of the house. This window backed up to Soshigaya Park, and police believed the perpetrator had climbed a tree in the park, removed the window screen, and then climbed inside the home. Like, that's how close they were to this park. In addition to the screen being missing, a flower pot that usually sat on the windowsill had been broken and dropped to the ground, and footprints were found nearby. However, there were no fibers found in the window frame, which seemed odd, I guess. It is possible that the house was broken into from this bathroom window, but there are other possibilities as well. Some people wonder if Mikio let this person into their home willingly through the front door. And then they attacked him once they were inside. I think that the reason they're not totally sure is because they feel certain that the killer at least left through that bathroom window.
Yeah, why would you
that
leave
maybe didn't
though?
come in. There's a reason that they may have
Okay.
snuck out.
Okay.
Um,
Like the front
and
door may be just too visible or like whatever, I guess. So,
yeah. Um, the other option is that evidently there was a balcony outside of the kids' bedrooms. Um, there's a podcast about this case specifically called the Faceless Podcast, and they allege that the killer may have climbed on top of the family's car and then pulled himself up onto the balcony and accessed Ray's room directly from there.
mm,
Um, the reason they think that's possible is because police believe that Ray was the first to be murdered
mm.
because there was no blood in his room. They said, like, had he been murdered after the rest of the family, there would have been blood tracked into his room in some capacity.
Oh, from the killer?
Yes.
Like if the killer killed a bunch of people and then went into this room. Okay.
Right. But
I
his
see.
room was like spotless.
Okay.
Police think that he came in through the bathroom window, but Faceless Podcast really thinks it was the balcony. I don't know.
Okay.
But
I'm
police think
assuming like they would have, not that this is like a surefire way, but like I'm assuming
mhm.
police would have looked for like footprints on the top of the car. I don't know. Like,
Um yes, so the reason the Faceless Podcast, this was one of the things that I was like having trouble like understanding what they were saying. The reason the Faceless Podcast thinks that they um, came in through the balcony is because they said that there were crime scene photos taken the day of, and I didn't know what this meant, so I didn't include it. They said that they were taking photos of, like they said, like mirror wings or like window wings, and I didn't know what that meant. And pictures of the car.
okay.
So yes.
Okay.
So police came up with this timeline of events. The killer walked from the bathroom, supposedly, to Ray's bedroom, also on the second floor of the home, where they strangled him with their bare hands. Police were able to determine that Ray was the first to be murdered because there was no blood. Um, they believe Mikio ran upstairs to Ray's room to check on him, where he fought the killer and likely injured him before they stabbed him in the head with a sashimi boko knife.
They stabbed the killer?
No,
They
Mikio.
stabbed. Okay.
Mikio. Police knew this type of knife was
So they
used
think
because,
he injured the killer in
yes,
the kid's room.
no. They think that he went upstairs to check on Ray, and there was like an altercation
Like in the
at the top of the
hallway.
stairs.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Police know this type of knife was used because part of the blade had broken off inside Mikio's head.
Mm,
The reason they think that this may have happened at the top of the stairs is because that 11 o'clock loud sound that neighbors heard, people think is either Mikio falling down the stairs or Yasuko and Nina slamming a door.
okay.
So then the killer seemed to attack Yasuko and Nina with the other portion of the broken knife before using
So it like broke off and like he still just had it in his hand. I
yes.
was thinking it like broke off as this dude falls down the stairs with it in his head
He like it broke into
and he
one
just
part in his head, one part in the guy's hand. He grabbed a Santoku knife from the family home and used that to kill Yasuko and Nina. Police believe that the women had either been on the third floor of the home or had fled there to hide, as there was blood inside the loft-style room on the third floor. So it had like the kind of door that an attic has, so
okay.
that people are thinking if they were up there or if they fled up there and pulled the door,
Sure, sure,
it
sure.
would have been really loud, like when an attic closes. Um, but that's not where they were found. They were found in the hallway. So at some point they did come out of there.
Oh,
but they believe they were up there at some point because there was blood in the room.
Okay.
Both Yasuko and
Or
Nina.
is the killer injured? I know there's things I don't know, but just be my brain now. Is the killer injured and is just like tooting around their house afterwards?
He is certainly tooting around their house.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know that they had to be up there, just like someone bleeding. I mean, if we know that he was bleeding from whatever injury.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get
think-
that. I was thinking like the sound of someone falling down the stairs is like obviously louder than a door shutting, but like that is a loud door. And that would explain like if they were trying to hide why it would like not be discreet if it was like loud. But
I also wonder if I think
then
I
he
saw
would have
someone
what?
say
Like carried them down?
Well, I think I saw someone else say like that they were up there and he came up there and that's where their attack started, and maybe the sound was them coming out
Okay.
of the third floor room. Like
And what,
falling,
like trying to okay.
like
Or trying to shut it behind
jumping.
him.
Yeah. We don't know. They both of the mom and the daughter.
How far is the hallway they're found? Like, is it the hallway like right under that? Is it like down in the first floor? Like,
they're in the second floor hallway.
Okay.
They both had post-mortem injuries, leading police to conclude that they had been the last to die and thus received the brunt of the overkill. Police were able to determine that the killer remained in the home for at least 2 hours, but possibly up to 10, because they had used the family computer, unplugged the phone line, drank 4 bottles of barley tea, used the toilet without flushing, treated their injuries using the family's first aid products, took a nap on the sofa, ate melon and 4 ice creams from the refrigerator, ransacked drawers in the home, took money, and then left 10 items on the couch: a knife, a plaid scarf, an olive green fanny pack, a baseball tee, a jacket, a bucket hat, a pair of gloves, a pair of shoes, and a baggy pair of pants.
First question. Are all 10 items the family's?
No.
Okay.
0 10 items are the family's.
And are they like lined up like precisely, or they're like thrown on, like they like displayed?
I think they are displayed, and I'll tell you more about the couch. So you'll
Okay.
That's
a lot of DNA, friend. That's a lot of options for DNA.
Isn't it? These clothing items gave police an idea of the age of their perpetrator. They were like, "Oh, he's stylish. He's cool.
He loves naps.
He's with the fashion. He's giving Y2K." They said that he seemed to be young and living a student lifestyle based on the trends of his clothing, but especially based on the scarf. They said that this was a scarf that many students. They are his.
Okay, I was thinking, like, spoiler, I was thinking they could have been like trophies from other killings. They could have been like whatever. I didn't realize they were like all in his size. They basically think like this was all his outfit.
No, yeah, that is his outfit. Okay, he took all of his clothes off.
So he is stylish.
And left them there. The scarf they found was, I guess maybe like a uniform vibe. They said that students in Tokyo would have worn a scarf like this from the time they were in junior high all the way to college. They were also able to determine that they were looking for someone thin based on the width that the fanny pack had been pulled to. It would only fit around someone with a less than 30-inch waist.
Okay.
I said, Dawn?
You said
Violet Chachki? Who's this? 2 handkerchiefs were found in front of the toilet. One appeared to have previously been tied in a knot. Like, you know when you tie like a bandana, and then you untie it and it's wrinkly in the corners, so they could see that, the little wrinkles. And the other one, they think that he must have like pushed the knife through it and held it like with the bandana over the knife because there was a hole in the middle of it. That's just what they guessed. So they thought.
But was there blood on it? Like he did that while he used it? And like, did he think his hand was like protected? I don't know.
I really don't know why they think that's what they were doing.
Just there's a knife-shaped hole in it.
Yes.
Okay.
They believe that he had likely worn the handkerchief around his face like a mask and cut through the other handkerchief with a knife.
Over his tongue. So he could like talk out of his tongue.
Yeah, they're both tied around his head. The handkerchiefs smelled of cologne, which was later determined to be Drakkar Noir, a scent popular amongst skateboarders. So another clue that he's a cool guy.
This is like the most like it would like come in like a murder mystery file box thing where it's like, now like think really hard, like what type of person might wear this cologne? Okay, next step, what type of person would have the fanny pack to this point? Like I feel like we're in a game.
So many clues.
If they're all fucking wrong, I'm never playing this game again.
The papers that had been taken when the drawers were rifled through had been dumped on. Remember I said he had ransacked the place? Papers were dumped on the floor, in the bathtub, and in the toilet.
Okay,
and yep. Although money was taken, even more money was left behind. All of the family's wallets had been taken and the cash that was inside of them, but their bank cards had been left behind and spread out and displayed on the couch.
Okay. More than 10 items.
With his clothes. The drawers the papers had been pulled from were all taken out and stacked in various places around the home, including in the bathroom.
Like
There's a stack of drawers in front of the toilet. Sorry.
Mary, I think you missed the translation. They meant a stack of pants. A stack of drawers. Sorry. Mary messed up here.
Along with the papers found in the water in the bathtub, police found a bloody towel and a bloody sanitary pad, which they believe the killer had used to clean his own blood, as there was no evidence of the killer trying to have cleaned the scene itself.
Or it's a woman. Done.
It was originally reported that the home's phone lines had been cut, but the chief of police later confirmed that to be untrue. They were just unplugged. When police were able to analyze Mikio's computer, they could see that it had connected to the internet at 1:18 a.m., which they believe was from the killer. The computer was accessed again, though, around 10 a.m., which police have a couple of theories about. One is that the killer was still in the home and accessed the computer a second time, visiting a Tokyo theater website. And then when he heard the knocks at the front door, he fled out the bathroom window.
Okay.
Because there was someone at the front door. The reason they think that like this may have happened like so quickly is because almost like immediately after the website was accessed, the computer was very quickly shut down because the cord had been pulled.
Okay.
And they said that it may have been taken from the home.
The computer?
The cord. Why, you don't know? Is it there or not? The second theory is that Haruko accidentally activated the computer When police arrived
And then immediately pulled the cord?
in one fell swoop, when police arrived, the mouse of the computer had fallen on the floor.
Like it fell in front of them, or they saw
No,
it on
it
the
was
floor?
on the floor. Yeah.
Okay.
And they were able to determine that the Tokyo Theater website that had been accessed had been bookmarked on the desktop. So they wondered if Haruko had bumped into the computer mouse, clicking on the bookmarked website, knocking over the mouse, and pulling the computer cord in the process, none of which she remembered doing.
Yeah. I think it's much more likely that he got on the computer. He accidentally clicked the bookmark before going to wherever he wanted to go. But before he could get to where he wanted to go, someone knocked on the door.
Yeah. Some people said that like maybe he was like trying to
Make it look like them.
understand. No, that
Oh.
he's like trying to like understand them better, like going to their bookmarks.
Do we have anything about what he was doing at the 118 one on the computer?
No, everything I've seen though has said that he was accessing bookmarked pages. But the only one that the only website mentioned specifically was the Tokyo Theater one. But so I'm assuming that he was accessing only bookmarked pages, what it sounds like. Whenever the killer fled the home, whether it was 1:18 or 10 o'clock, it was believed that he had taken some of Mikio's clothes, since he had left 75% of his own clothes on the living room sofa.
Yeah.
Police were able to rule out the idea that the killer fled by any mode of public transportation based on the amount of blood and injuries he would have had on him. They believed it was more likely he had traveled by foot, bicycle, or by car. The car theory did gain some traction after the public learned that Yasuko had made complaints in the days leading up to the murders about a car parking too close to their house several days in a row. So,
foot, bike, and car are very different.
Yeah. They said probably not bike, because they think he got injured on his hands mostly. So they're like, probably can't grip the handles.
I mean, you gotta grip a steering wheel.
Well, they think maybe he got in a car.
Oh, okay.
With seemingly so much evidence left behind at the crime scene, police were able to determine a few specific things about who they were looking for. Their killer had recently eaten string beans and sesame seeds, as evidenced by their fecal matter.
Oh, I was like, they're only gonna be able to test that with poop. I thought they meant they saw it
Good
like
news!
eaten from the fridge, and I was like, what are you gonna test everyone in the world's poop?
Nope.
But nope.
This fecal matter was tested against the stomach contents of the family, but was determined not to match what any of them had eaten that evening, so that they were able to determine it was him that left it. Trace amounts of sand were found inside the fanny pack left behind, which was determined to have come from 3 different places. One was Edwards Air Force Base in California. The second was the Nevada desert, and the third was a skate park in Japan.
He's just a sand collector.
Yeah. There was also a powder.
And he's a skateboarder. Mary, he's a skateboarder.
Yeah, I know. There was also a powdered fluorescent dye found on the bag and on the shoes that they left.
On the fanny pack?
Yes.
Powdered dye.
Powdered fluorescent dye.
Okay.
They determined. I'm picturing what they throw at you at the color run.
Yeah. Yeah.
They determined that the sashimi knife and clothing the killer had brought with them had been purchased at Kanagawa Prefecture. Only 130 units. Okay, let me clarify though. I've seen what I'm about to say. I've seen this said about a jacket and a sweater, and then some places call the baseball tee a sweater. So I'm not totally sure if it's the jacket or the baseball tee or what, but I think the jacket.
Okay.
Only 130 units of the killer's jacket were made and sold, which gave police a list of where to start. But unfortunately, only 12 of those 130 buyers were able to be tracked down, and none of them were the killer, it seemed. As for the shirt they had left behind, it was determined that about 200 to 300 of that exact shirt had been sold somewhere between the beginning of 2000 and the beginning of 2001, around the time when the murders occurred. In Tokyo specifically, there were only 4 different stores that sold this shirt, and only 10 had been sold in the city. However, they were unable to track these purchases back to any promising leads.
They thought they were about to Richard Ramirez his ass.
Right. The transcript of the original 110 call was released. The call was placed by a 51-year-old male relative of Mikio's. So
The original. What does the original mean?
Like
the original isn't
the first call that was made.
But that wasn't by.
Oh. So this is what I'm gonna clarify. So like their family all lives like right next door. Like
Okay.
his side, her side, everybody. So Haruko, who is Yasuko's mom, when she was having trouble getting a hold of them, she does not live far away.
Okay.
So she was able to get there quickly, and then
she couldn't get a hold of them because of the phones.
Yes.
Okay.
And then she enlisted the help of a relative of Mikio's, who also lived close by.
Okay.
And I think there may have been others. The reason I know that Haruko was there. Yes. It's not like that was made up. And she is the one that found them. But then this male relative of Mikio's is the one talking to the operator. But it also says toward the end, he starts not making a lot of sense. And it says that while he's trying to answer the questions, they're having trouble hearing him, and he's having trouble hearing them because there is so much screaming and crying in the background from like Haruko.
So she's in his house probably screaming and crying?
No, I think they're in,
or
I don't know.
He had like a cell phone, went over there with her or something.
I really don't know. I think that's a good question though, that maybe he was maybe they were back at his house. But so the man who's talking to the operators is a 51-year-old male relative of Mikio's. Okay. And Haruko was with him, and they said possibly other family members. Okay. Both of them live next door. Okay. We're going to read this tiny piece of transcript that we have. Okay. So I'm going to have you read the part of the 110 operator. Again, this is translated from Japanese. So, whenever you're ready.
This is the Metropolitan Police Department. Is it a crime? Is it an accident?
The whole family next door is dead.
So the whole family's dead, right?
One person is dead. 2 are covered in blood. We don't know where the other child is.
You don't know?
This is where all the screaming happens. And then he says, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm sorry I lost my cool. I don't know."
Okay, also, what is this about the other child?
So
that's Katie. That's not the 110 operator.
So yeah, they're saying Mikio they can tell is dead.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Nina and Yasuko are covered in blood.
They're not sure where Ray
is. Yes, that's what makes me believe that they must be in the home still.
Sure.
Kind of walking through. And maybe that's why there is so much screaming in the background, is because things are being discovered as they're going. But yeah, that's the thing. Is so at the end, I'm like, what does he mean I lost my cool? But like
was he the one screaming?
Right. And then I'm like, is it like a translation thing? Like, because I was like, what is the translation to I lost my cool in Japanese? Like, is it like a colloquial phrase that people mean when they're like, lost it for a second. I don't know. But I thought that was important.
Mm-hmm.
Investigators, I was going to make you read something else later on, but I decided not to.
Thank you.
Investigators who were on the scene that day said, quote, "The smell of blood filled the house, and I have a strong feeling that the suspect, the culprit, was abnormal. It's
I'd
rare."
say so.
You're telling me.
He left his shit in the toilet.
It's rare to see a case where there are multiple fingerprints of a suspect from the start. I thought, we can do this. Find Butabana, get me one fingerprint. End quote. Now, you may be asking yourself, who is Butabana? We looked it up. Sammy and I looked it up for you. Butabana is the nickname they had given to the killer. There are 2 translations we found for it. I also saw him referred to as Pigbana. But so there are 2 translations to Butabana. If you separate the words, Butabana, it roughly translates to unknown slayer.
That's okay, fair.
Yeah. As one word, which is how they write it, it translates roughly to pig snout.
Okay.
Which seems less likely, except for that they were also calling him Pigbana.
Pig slayer.
Sammy said, "Do you think?" He's like, "Do you think that they call the opposite of cops pigs in Japan?"
Criminals.
So I'm not sure which they meant. They don't know who it is, so that's what they called him. And a lot of the source material was Butabana or Pigbana.
I'm gonna assume it means unsub.
Yeah. In addition to all of the evidence the kill had to have knowingly left behind, they also left behind DNA and fingerprints on their ice cream wrappers and all throughout the house. Japan has a more extensive criminal fingerprint database than the US does, with almost 1.3 million fingerprints. This was promising when the police submitted evidence found at the scene, but unfortunately, or fortunately, the killer must not have had any sort of criminal record in Japan because no fingerprint matches were made. They were able to determine, though, that the killer was around 5'5" or 5'6", and then, which we already knew because they got the itty bitty waist. They were between 15 and 35 years old and right-handed. The police had estimated that the killer had been injured by Mikio because there were trace amounts of blood found at the scene, notably on the towel and sanitary pad found in the bathtub, which were tested and shown not to match any members of the Miyazawa family. The boys had type B blood and the girls had type O blood, and this was type A blood. They were also able to determine from the blood that the killer was male and was most likely mixed race with a Southern European mother and an East Asian father. It's also possible that the mother was only partially European, likely at least a little bit from a country near Croatia or Albania.
Okay.
The blood also indicated that the killer was more likely Korean or Chinese than Japanese, as it contained a genetic marker that was found in 1 out of 15 Japanese people, 1 in 10 Chinese people, and 1 in 5 Korean people.
Okay. So just like statistically more likely, but not like necessarily.
Yes, but also pointing to the suspect possibly being Korean was the fact that the shoes found at the scene were only distributed in South Korea, and they had soil and debris in the bottom that was traced back to Seoul, which is
nuts.
The capital of South Korea.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting investigation.
It really is. Unfortunately, Japan has a privacy law in place that makes it illegal to publicly distribute a composite sketch based on exploratory DNA profiles.
Well, good thing he's Korean.
The U.S. is unburdened by those anchors.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is true that, like, A
Yeah,
composite
because
sketch of what? Like,
right,
there's no witnesses. Like,
right. It's
you can't
purely
just
based on what their DNA says they might look like because
yeah.
of various factors.
Which at that point you
So
could just
yeah, fair.
release 5-5, then like
Yeah. They also said
Duran.
on Crime Junkie, they said that like the way it's worded makes it sound like maybe they can make a composite sketch for like police use,
For
but
them
they
to
just
work
can't
off of.
distribute it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so on the night after the bodies were found, investigators were notified of a situation at Tobu Nikko Station in Nikko City, Tochigi Prefecture. A station employee had reported treating a man with an injured hand. The police postponed the investigation into this matter, claiming that they were unable to reach the scene at all. They
Awesome.
did not go to the station to talk to the employee until 10 months later,
Great.
claiming that there was no way a bleeding man would have boarded a train. So it's not like they had to worry about him fleeing. They claimed that they wanted to prioritize someone who may be running, saying, quote, "What we detectives fear most is that the people we hear from others will be able to get back to their homes." I'm guessing they meant hear about from others. It's when someone who is judged to be not the culprit at first glance is later found to be the culprit and arrested. It's possible that the investigators at the scene thought, this time, as long as we get fingerprints, we won't miss the culprit, and insufficiently questioned the culprit or investigated his acquaintances. End quote. I don't know what any of that means.
So they think he like might have already talked to him and like missed him.
I really don't know.
And I thought you already said there's no way he was on Metro Transit.
Right. Well, I feel like maybe that's what they're saying is like I don't think it was this guy because he wouldn't have gotten on a train because he was bleeding. We're gonna focus on the people who can run away. The host of the Faceless Podcast went to the town where Tobu Nikko is located to follow up on this potential lead, but claimed their investigation didn't go anywhere. They said that locals seemed to believe the story about the injured man, but the police didn't put much stock into it, and the train companies refused to speak to them about it. 100 days after the murders, a statue was placed in the family's yard behind their house. It was a Buddhist figure that was used to symbolize and honor unborn children or children who had passed away. On the bottom of the statue was a carving of the Japanese character for the number 6, Ray's age at the time of his death. Investigators were torn on whether this was a clue left behind by someone involved in the murders or someone's way of sending their condolences to the community. But either way, did not help. Police had several ideas about what kind of killer they were looking for based on the scene, but many of their ideas conflicted with one another. On one hand, it seemed that the case was riddled with overkill, pointing in the direction that the killer may have known the family. Others thought it was less of overkill and more of overcompensation at not being skilled, a sign that this was a rushed murder and likely his first. However, this is contradicted by the fact that the killer was relaxed enough to stay in the house, using their things, and leaving an abundance of evidence behind.
Yeah.
The evidence... Strange. The evidence of the clothing left behind, as well as the cologne, caused police to lean into the idea that they were looking for a young killer. As I mentioned before, the cologne found on the handkerchiefs was popular amongst skateboarders. And coincidentally, the family's home backed up to a skate park.
Is it the one where he got the sand?
I was going to say, remember the sand? I don't know. There are a couple of theories surrounding this bit of information. It was reported that Mikio had argued with some of the skaters on different occasions about their noise levels. So investigators wondered if this was the motive for one of the skateboarders to break into the home and kill the family.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be crazy. However, more compelling in my opinion, is the fact that the family had been offered a significant amount of money to move out so that the skate park could expand onto their property.
Mm,
It was noted in records of other buyouts in the area that they likely received about $1 million.
okay.
Is it possible that some of the skateboarders knew of these large sums of money being offered to the neighbors and took that as an opportunity to rob them? I don't know. And then leave all their skater
Mhm.
clothes behind.
And their credit cards.
Yep. Further supporting the robbery theory is the fact that Yasuko ran a college prep tutoring service where she was paid in cash, all of which was kept within the home. Police estimated that hundreds of thousands of yen were missing from the home. However, there was some note in the family budget books accounting for about 150,000 yen being missing. What police are unsure of is if that 150,000 yen was cash that was missing from the home, or was it missing from their bank accounts, in which case the cash that turned out to be missing would be additional
Sure.
to that.
Yeah.
There are, of course, other theories outside of the idea that a skater boy was the killer. One neighbor reported seeing three men hailing a taxi in the neighborhood the night of the murders, and the cab driver later found blood stains inside the cab. However, this group was quickly ruled out as they had been seen around 8:30 p.m., and we know that the killer was in the house until at least 1:18 a.m., and that they weren't killed until at least 11:30 p.m.
Mhm.
So definitely wasn't them. One theory,
Someone should look at them though.
yeah,
Do something.
one theory with quite a bit of traction comes from the author of a book entitled The Setagaya Family Murders 15 Years On. The author, Fumiya Ichihashi, has come to believe that the family was murdered by a hired hitman and former member of the Korean army. He goes on to claim that he has actually found this hitman and matched the fingerprints from the scene to this individual.
Okay. Did you
Wonderful.
tell the police?
He did.
Okay.
Um, his account of the murders is that Mikio had mentioned the money his family was receiving from the skate park developers to an acquaintance, who then hired a hitman to kill the family and rob them. Then the killer left copious amounts of evidence linking him to Japan, Korea, and the southwestern United States, and hinting at his being a young skateboarder as a distraction from who he really was. Then
What?
the killer then the killer fled the country and hasn't been discovered since.
This is the bookman's theory?
Yes. Believers in this theory argue that the police have been given the name that Fumiya has, but are having trouble getting Korean authorities to cooperate with them and extradite him to Japan. Some armchair detectives found a thread on 2chan's Twilight channel, which people believe is evidence of a hired hitman. I'm going to read you some of this text chain that lends itself to this theory. The conversation is between a user called J9 and a user called H. J9 says, quote, to Mr. H, will you give cruelty allowance for this job? I have confirmed the transfer. I met resistance, but was successful in physically erasing it. I have left the BUP at Nishi High 32B. By the way, the belongings are also sold at the Imperial Palace, end quote. H responded, quote, I have confirmed the data. Thank you for your hard work, end quote. There's also a message in there about bananas, but I didn't feel it was relevant.
Could be. Melons.
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, this is, I don't know. Originally, they said that this type of website doesn't have logs to track anything back to routers or individuals, but the hosts of the Faceless Podcast claimed that police were able to link some of the messages back to a kid who did admit to making it up to make it seem like he was able to predict the murders.
What do they have to do with the murders, though?
There,
How do we know they're the murders at all?
people, so I think I think that what they traced back to this kid was like that he posted the like text chain and was like, "This is about the Setagaya murders."
Oh, okay.
I think Ichihashi's theory does have its doubters, though.
Hmm.
I had mentioned earlier that Japan is more extensive in their fingerprinting than we are in the United States, and one of the ways they've racked up such a large database of fingerprints is by fingerprinting all entries to the country, which implies that this individual would have had to come in secretly
Mm-hmm.
if assuming that they're Korean, which Ichihashi says they are. This seems unlikely, and many Japanese followers of the case point out that if a Korean individual were smuggled into the country, it would have been difficult to remain undetected, especially like with these like sightings,
Yeah.
because they would have had to learn Japanese. And they said that it would have been pretty easy to distinguish a Korean accent.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it is not beyond the realm of possibility, especially if we're talking about an unknown, undetected professional hitman.
Yeah, he could have used fake fingerprints.
And in fact, people have smuggled their way into Japan before. In 2014, a man was found dead in a rubber boat off the coast of Hibikinata, Hibikinata, off the coast of Hibikinata, after his boat had capsized. The man, referred to in my source as only, quote, a cabinet office employee,
Okay.
had left South Korea with 24,000 yen without making any record of leaving South Korea in an attempt to enter Japan undetected. According to discourse surrounding this theory on Reddit, one user pointed out that it seemed unlikely that Korean authorities would be uncooperative with the Japanese police. Because they were like, oh, they know who it is. They're just not helping. They had helped them plenty of times in the past. In 1998, which was just a few years before the Miyazawa family was murdered, an 18-year-old Japanese woman named NAKAMURA MINAKO went missing in South Korea. She had set out that day to pay her school fees after failing her university entrance exam, but it was believed that she had detoured and headed to South Korea instead. Unfortunately, Nakamura has still not been found, but the South Korean police have always been helpful in searching for her. The Faceless Podcast, which again it's only about this case, they gave a lot of clarity surrounding Ichihashi's theory, calling him a fantasist and calling his book true crime fan fiction.
Fake crime, otherwise known as.
Well, fan fiction based
Yes.
on true crime.
Yes.
The host of Faceless called Ichihashi several times to appear on their podcast, and he refused. They claim that the South Korean authorities have been extremely helpful in this case. They also dispute some of the original facts in the investigation, which further blurs the outline of the night of the murders. Um, just like some things they were like, they're like the ones who pointed out like the phone cord wasn't cut, it was unplugged. And like other things from the case get like doubted over time, I guess. Like even like Haruko said that she couldn't remember if she actually did use her spare key or if the door was already unlocked. Like just things get like muddy over time. The Faceless Podcast believes that the killer stayed in the house based like not out of like boldness, but kind of based mostly on the amount of blood he had lost and the need to control that bleeding to come down from the shock of his injuries. But they don't rule out that he was mentally ill based on how odd and careless his behavior was while staying in the house. Like, sure, he was treating his injuries, but he did also eat 4 bars of ice cream and take a shit in their toilet. So, all evidence for this case was sent into custody and remains there today. Police set up a 20 million yen reward for information leading to the arrest of the perpetrator, which is about 13,000 US dollars. The investigation into the murdered Miyazawa family is one of the largest investigations in Japanese history, with over 246,000 investigators and over 12,000 pieces of evidence collected. This averages to about 40 new investigations a day and 14,000 new investigators a year.
Jesus.
Yeah. Investigators have tested fingerprints from the scene to about 50 million fingerprints and the DNA from the scene to 1.3 million DNA samples. The investigation was originally led by Takeshi Shushida, the chief of the Seijo police station, and he remained in charge until his retirement. Despite this, many of those interested in the case have critiqued police's handling of the case. Ichihashi claimed that since the murders happened on a holiday, New Year's Eve, the police actually sent a reserves team out to handle the crime scene instead of their usual team of investigators. He also claimed that the police had early on asked the community to be on the lookout for a man with a severely injured hand and refused to look at anyone without a hand injury. But not the guy on the train.
That's true.
And one community member said that she called the police to let them know that a man had run in front of her car with a bloody hand, and police never returned her call, interviewed her, or looked into this lead. After hearing this, the police say, none of that is true, but ma'am, if that happened, please call us.
Please.
In 2010, Japan's statute of limitations on violent crimes, which was 25 years, was lifted, allowing the case to remain open and active as long as it takes to solve it.
Ooh.
In 2015, Yasuko's older sister, Anne, filed a complaint to the Broadcast and Human... This is a mouthful. To the Broadcast and Human Rights and Other Related Rights Committee of the Broadcasting Ethics and Program Improvement Organization.
Awesome.
Because she claimed that a TV documentary had misrepresented her as a possible suspect in the crime. The TV Asahi documentary had aired in 2014 and featured a profile from an ex-FBI agent who claimed that the killer was likely someone who had killed the family out of resentment for them. Also in 2015, 40 police officers were assigned to the case full-time, and by 2019, the number of investigators was only cut down by 5 members. Each year, the team goes to the home for a memorial ceremony. In 2019, the city said they had to tear down the Miyazawa home due to its age, as the home was beginning to show signs of deterioration and was at risk of collapse. Police assured the public that this would have no bearing on the investigation, as they had already preserved all of the evidence they needed, but that did not stop the family and other supporters from appealing the decision. In January of 2019, Anne was calling for the preservation of the house in Setagaya Ward. She posed the question, quote, "Is it appropriate to demolish the house where the murder case remains unsolved? There are definitely things that can be felt only at a crime scene. I would like people to get a sense of how they live their lives. That sense could lead to a break in the case," end quote. Anne made the decision to open the house to the public in December of 2019 after receiving a notice from local police that her request to preserve the house was not going to be honored. The request was denied based on the grounds that police had completed the collection of evidence from the home. The land where the house stands belongs to the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, so they can do what they want with it, they say. As of 2022, the house was still standing and still open to reporters through Anne, and she is still working daily to solve this case. She's like 60, 65 too. Yeah, she's working her little butt off.
You telling me you not going to give me an answer about why he laid his shit out on the couch?
I don't know why he did it. I don't know who he is.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thoughts, comments, concerns?
I don't know. It's going to live in my brain.
Do you believe Ichihashi?
No.
At all? Okay. Do you think it was a skateboarder?
I mean, he could have skateboarded as a hobby. I don't know that he was there to like enact revenge
For being told to be quiet.
for the community of skateboarders.
Yeah. I do think it's possible that like Mikio mentioned, oh, like we're getting $1 million to move out of our house, and someone was like, interesting. But I don't think it's as I mean, I don't know that I think that's what happened. I think it's a possibility, but I don't think it's as extensive as Ichihashi thinks it is.
Yeah.
How did I do with their names?
Good. I mean, I obviously don't know the correct pronunciations, but
they sounded right.
Yeah. Sounding good.
Okay.
Oh, bye.
Bye.
Bye.